All right, so we do have a quorum.
We do balloon.
Guess we'll start.
I can do without.
I'll take a pass.
All right, I guess we'll
cool.
get
Great.
started. This is the regular meeting of the Traverse City Light and Power Board for Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Tobin,
Here.
Brennan,
Here.
Ness,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Bomer,
Here.
Davila, Heiberger.
Here. Thank you. Any recusals tonight? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the consent calendar.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board staff or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar.
Great. Would any member of the board like to pull anything from consent? All right. Any members of the public? I bring it back to the board for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you both. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consent passes. We are moving into new business. Item A, we're going to look at a new governance policy for the capital plan. I believe Tony's going to kick us off.
That's right.
Are you going to go up to him? Okay.
I might as well be me since I'm starting.
Everybody knew but Tony, even me.
So start off with our mission and vision, and we're, hopefully by the end of this presentation, it's pretty clear to everyone, you know, how this is going to relate to our mission and vision and continuing that, not just with this policy, but everything that we do that relates to it. So why now and why this matters now? So I think everyone that's been here for a while sees the complexity of our projects are increasing. We're, of course, expanding the fiber business, talking about future expansion in there, looking to taking more work in-house, such as the customer service and billing. And with that, really, it kind of comes to, we have a lot more things going on. The projects get more complicated as we do more advanced things. We really have to step back and take like a holistic look at these things and what departments they touch individually and how one place may be affected by another one. So it takes a lot more planning on the front end. And a good example, I think, is the time of use billing example, where you have this project where we have the operations where we're keeping these devices powered that are collecting the information from the meters. You have IT that's managing the network so that all that data can get back to our servers. You have, of course, finance that takes that information and is billing based on that, and you have like customer service that has to field calls and such. So really all the parts of the company are touched by these projects and these advanced things. That's a perfect example of a newer project that we're doing, and we're trying to do more of that stuff. So we really have to take a step back and look at how that all interacts, and even beyond that, some risks like regulatory risks and such. And so we've been really successful, I think, so far, but we're trying to set a groundwork so that we can continue to be scalable. Because just because we've been successful so far doesn't mean that in the future, you know, as we get more and more complicated programs, that we will actually be successful. So we're looking at kind of starting from the top down with this. So what's already in place? So we do have some of the kind of lower pieces in place. We, of course, do annual capital planning in our O&M budgets that we bring to you for approval in the City Commission. We have the existing project reporting and project authorization. So I've been here, you know, many times presenting on project authorizations and closeouts on how we did financially. Carlos set up obviously a lot of financial controls in there. We always get good marks in our audit. So it's proof in that. We have a lot of board approvals at key decision points, so with the project authorization, and if we're, say, going into a multi-year contract with a vendor. And we established a lot of procurement and internal management practices, which again reflect back on our quality audit, that a lot of those things are functioning well. So what's the opportunity here? How can we kind of advance from that? And as I mentioned, really starting from the top down, so looking at starting with the board, of course, which is the very top, and trying to standardize as we move down. I think a big thing is right now there's kind of a lot of uncertainty. We have no real, we have kind of some rough things that we followed, what we've always done, so to speak. But there's not a lot of policies that say this employee can spend, $100,000 on projects, for instance. And that really kind of that uncertainty really causes delays or potential missteps where we have to maybe rework things. Because really, having that order means everyone really knows their job and what they're authorized to do. They're not stuck in a position where they feel pressured, so they're making the safe call, so to speak. They feel comfortable in what their role is and what their authority is, so they're able to make those decisions, and really be able for everyone to be held accountable for their actions. So, and then even further on this, how it applies to, and Brandy in particular is, you as the board can hold her accountable from this board level policy, and then Brandy can, as we work through some of the lower level policies, Brandy can hold her staff and everyone in the company accountable and work our way, up through the chain.
So I'm going to talk about the capital governance framework. There's 3 components. There's board policy and oversight, executive director authority, and operational execution. With the board level, you'll approve the capital governance policy and continue to approve the 6-year capital improvement plan on an annual basis. You'll set governance principles and approval thresholds, and you'll receive a portfolio level reporting and accountability. We used to do this in the past, have an annual report, so we'll bring that back. So you'll just have like a high level overview. Usually we did that in September. The executive director will manage the capital portfolio, develop the capital steering committee, which provides a lot of benefits for the utility. The committee will score the capital projects based on a common criteria, so it makes it a level playing field. This will make us grant ready, so we'll have all the information for the capital project. So if a grant comes up, we have all the information to submit. It provides internal accountability to staff, and it gives leadership a defensible decision trail as to why a capital project is tabled or moved forward in the 6-year capital plan. The operational execution, they'll be ready to have the projects ready to review to the capital steering committee. As Tony kind of mentioned, moving towards a cross-functional project delivery. So where a team will bring forward a project instead of a siloed individual. So it'll be a really cross-collaboration between different departments. And then they'll adhere to procurement controls and reporting, and then individual project reporting on how that performance of that project went. We'll move into roles and responsibilities, and these really go hand in hand. The board will adopt the capital governance policy when the executive director will implement the framework to support that policy. The board will approve the annual CIP and major capital decisions, where Brandy will establish the procedures, standards, and controls to develop the information for you to approve and make decisions on. And then the board will provide strategic oversight and accountability, where the executive director will manage the capital portfolio, risk and performance, and then report progress and escalate as needed. So that's that annual report that we'll bring to you. So what this policy really brings value to the board, because it's clear visibility into capital risk and performance. So that means staff will identify any risks with the project before we move forward in requesting approval from you. And the performance of the project will be tracked. There'll be consistent decision-ready information. That's, once again, coming back to that capital steering committee, requesting all the same information for all the capital projects. There'll be a strong stewardship of public funds. This policy really enhances our planning process in alignment to the strategic plan, so it reduces the risk of last-minute or reactive approvals. And then it's alignment with public power best practices, and these are the Capital Steering Committee, aligning with strategic goals, standardizing that project evaluation criteria, and implementing transparent budget and reporting, and really planning for risk management.
So a lot of the items that are mentioned should sound familiar. I mean, it just sound like a repeat, nothing like really new. The biggest difference is that we're actually memorializing this into a framework. I mean, there is one existing policy that we have, and it's the asset investment policy. That policy will eventually probably fold in, so you'll probably see another update in a few months that folds in some of those details. But in essence, what you're seeing is that a lot of the work that we've been working on in the past 3 years in terms of creating a risk profile, coming up with a committee, we're memorializing that into an actual framework document. And then, as Tony and Carla mentioned, this also gives me an opportunity to hold the staff accountable in terms of what should occur. I mean, I'll be frank, you know, going through this journey, I didn't even know that there was a reporting requirement usually at the end for the portfolio. So that's the value of having a documented framework so that we kind of know what should be occurring and what shouldn't be occurring. The policy document is in the actual packet. This slide just really bullets a couple of the items that are at the high level from the board perspective. But if you go to the next slide, again, like these principles shouldn't look foreign either. I mean, we've been talking about equity, affordability, reliability, resilience, accountability, transparency, financial steward. All of these items are in the capital improvement plan right now. So we're going to continue on with that. You shouldn't see much of a change, but being able to have this framework for me is just good governance. I think if you recall, like when I first started, my goal was focused on stability, renewal, and this is that renewal aspect, so to speak, of like what we're doing.
Great. Questions?
Yeah,
Laura.
can you, I'm just, I want to just get some real life differences of how things will operate under this policy as opposed to before.
So it shouldn't be much different than what you have been seeing. What this does is just puts it in writing. So what is occurring in terms of the risk profile, being able to have documented reporting, being able to put expectations, like that will continue the same. This just memorializes what we're actually doing.
And so this is called a capital governance policy.
Yes.
And so is it limited to capital improvement issues, or we also have like a strategic plan? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, since I've gotten on this board,
Yeah.
it's not been a working board. It's been a policy board, you know, and is what I'm understanding, you're just kind of putting that more formalized in this
Yes,
policy?
absolutely. So kind of keep in mind, capitalized projects actually fit a specific profile in terms of time to recover the cost as well as like dollar investment.
Okay.
So major investments that go over a multi-year period, the cost is spread over the rate base. Those are capitalized projects. We do not have a documented framework. We've had practices, great practices, and we've been passing our audit with flying colors, but the policy that we do have specifically talks about a lot of details about capital investments, not the internal controls piece, not the risk piece, not the planning, and not the reporting component.
Okay, and that's what this policy covers, is the capital,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Absolutely.
I suppose it does form a new committee. Is that true, or does the board play the role of the steering committee?
No, staff does.
Staff
So
does,
we have
okay.
an internal capital governance committee that we've been
Even
using.
that already exists?
Yeah, we've been doing that for the past couple of years. So basically, it includes myself, Carla, and Tony.
Got it.
Right? And Adam, absolutely, with planning.
Yep.
So we've been doing that for the past few years.
Okay.
If you look at that capital improvement report, it's outlined in there what we've been doing. We've been trying to get in the practice of documenting what we're doing in our capital improvement plan. So it should look very similar to that.
Yes.
What's your timeline for establishing capital procedures and standards when it comes to this? It's in the slide 6, and I love a good policy. I just really hate a vague timeline.
Well, they're already in place. So, but much of what I'm referring to are things that we already have.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just sounds like we will set those approval thresholds as a board in the same slide. So I was just curious if that's coming to us in the future, if that's already been approved.
It's already, I would refer to the, basically the purchasing policy.
Okay.
So the purchasing policy, those are policies that are already in place. So the board has already been very clear in terms of what my level of authority is as it relates to a project approval as well as spending. So
Okay.
that's not new.
So this should clear up the muddiness that you were speaking of earlier about who can spend what by
That's in my
allowing our executive
yeah.
director to create those
Yeah,
thresholds.
that's at Brandy's level, and what it is a lot of like my employees are working on some of those projects that are smaller that don't really, we don't do a
You don't need to bring them
presentation.
here, right?
Yeah, we don't
But-
bring
but-
them here 'cause
But
they're
if
so
Brandy,
small.
if we give Brandy permission, then she can say that you can approve that
Correct.
based on X threshold. Is that what I'm getting?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So much of, I think what Tony is also referring to is like, we're dealing with projects that have already been approved by the board. I've already have authority. I want to put into place internal controls that further delegates that level of authority, but I also am asking for some additional detail, even with signing contract documents. So one piece that you probably aren't privy to just yet is that the team's been working with a flow control in terms of making certain I get a business recommendation before they give me something to sign. And they kind of go through, has it gone through the public procurement process? What is actually involved? Is there authority? Has it actually been approved? So those are some things that I'm actively working on. And so I'm working on those things at my level, but really you should have something at your level that kind of captures that too. So I hope that clarifies the question about the timeline and what is in place.
Any other questions? Okay, well, there is a motion. Towards the end of the presentation,
I can make the motion.
please.
I move that, the Light and Power Board approve the TCLP Capital Governance Board policy as presented.
So moved.
Thank you both. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Okay, bring it back to the board for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Policy passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony. And I think our last is a financial update.
So as of December 31st, 2025, operating revenues are 48.68% of budget, comparing to 50% because we're halfway through the fiscal year. Even though it's below budget, there is some good news. The reason it is because our power service cost recovery is lower than what it was forecasted, so it's good news. And plus, you'll notice a couple of the rate classes are at 50 or right below. We've had an increase in kilowatt hour sales about 2.1 million over prior year. Operating expenses are at 46.49%. Bilateral costs, just touching upon the purchase power costs, they're at 65% because there's higher contracted costs during July, August, September when it's super hot, and then December when it starts getting cold, and then January, there'll be a big portion of the bilateral costs. These were higher this year than last year because it was these were purchased to replace the lost energy from Campbell. However, the Campbell is continuing to operate according to the DOE. The current mandate is through February 17th or 19th, but it is expected that the DOE will renew that. The combustion turbine has higher expenditure in December due to an unplanned power turbine, and it's at 74% because of higher generation costs over the prior year of about $8 million. So net income through the second quarter is about $500,000 or $556,000. You'll look at the cash flow statement. We have approximately $6.1 million invested in capital assets, primarily related to the smart grid. You'll see on the balance sheet the bonds payable for the bonds that were issued in August. Fiber fund revenues are 43% and expenses are 33.58, resulting in a change in net position of about $37,000. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions?
I had a quick question on the Campbell issue and the DOE order. Is there an update on that in terms of what the expectation is? Is it just gonna, they want to keep this open another 5 years, 10 years? Is there a limit
And
on how long it can stay open? And
Second question, are we forced to use it? Like, I know we're part of the ownership group of it, right? But like, are we forced to pull power from it?
So, two different questions?
Sorry.
Where do you want us to start? Which one are you
Laura.
thinking? Do you want to touch on the projection in terms of how long? They've just been extending it. There hasn't been much notice.
What-
but-
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right now, I think the thought is that they're going to continue to keep renewing it as, based on the current political environment. But that's really all the information we have. I'm not aware of any long-term,
Okay. Are
there is
there-
concerns with operations and maintenance of the plant because
Right,
the
and-
plant's
and-
going to need some, some upgrades and some repairs and maintenance, so.
Are there lobbying efforts through like the various power associations that are occurring to try and get that
Yeah.
shut down?
There are lawsuits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there are
Lawsuits.
some intervening legal actions challenging whether or not it actually needs to continue to operate.
Okay.
There's also some legal action that's going on. TCOP is not directly involved, but as it relates to the cost recovery, because like Carla mentioned, there are some extended
Yeah.
costs.
Right.
But one thing I just want to remind you, even when the unit eventually retires, TCOP will still have a financial obligation to the decommissioning cost too.
Okay.
So we just need to get it to being done. I think
Okay.
that's the piece right now. As it relates to continuing to use and draw, the way it works is that it's an investment as it relates to our energy needs. We don't necessarily have electrons plugged up to the plant, but it is part of how we are meeting our cost and energy planning obligations. And when we actually have an opportunity to do a little bit more deep dive, I'll prioritize and make certain I touch on how all of those assets work, which includes not only Camp Bell, but also the Bell River facility too.
Okay. That'd be super helpful. Thank you.
I'm just gonna quick piggyback question before I ask for any other questions. When you talk about the Campbell costs are up 151%, is there, if you know off the top of your head, great, and if not, you can come back to us when you give the further update. In theory, because it is pumping some electrons onto the grid, covering some capacity, we're not buying something on a secondary market we would otherwise have to if Campbell wasn't still producing electrons. Desirability of that outcome aside, is 151% on top of the benefit we get because we are getting some energy out of the power plant, or is the incremental cost to us actually lower because we're still getting more? It's not shut down, it's still producing electricity, and that maybe it's even cheap electricity.
Yeah, so if you look on the statements, on the income statement, you'll see that our MISO, so when we get credit for the Campbell combustion running, that's
Yep.
where it goes, because it's reducing our market costs,
Yep.
what we have to pay. So that's a negative 1.5 million.
Okay, and what would 1.5 million compared in percentage terms adds to? What's 100, how much, what are Campbell, I'm just trying to figure out how bad it really is. You know, I know it's bad, I know it's costing us more. I'm just trying to figure out if all we care about was money, which we don't, but if we did, how expensive is it to keep Campbell going compared to that offset you just mentioned?
Well, so one benefit is, so if you wanted to look at, I mean, we have 1.5 million in Campbell costs, you can almost kind of correlate that credit for the market at 1.5, because we were expecting a $2.5 million cost in purchasing off the market, so I think we're benefiting. But another thing with that DOE, if we have any costs outside of what we're recovering, we get reimbursed from the federal government. And the MPPA is working on that. We just had a meeting on that in late December, so we are made whole.
Well, I think that's just part of the update, 'cause it's, I don't
I
want to
I
suggest
appreciate that.
keep Campbell, I just
Yeah.
want to respect the fact there's probably some financial upside to all this.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. That
Great.
helps me have clarity.
Okay, thank you for bringing it up. Anybody else have any questions for Carla? Okay, well, that was my question. So, anything else you want to say on the report?
I will make certain that I highlight too, just to add some clarity if it's helpful in terms of how the economics are working with respects to the project, so.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, there's
That
a lot
way
of,
you can
there's a lot of
refer-
history there.
Yeah, we can make certain we include that.
Okay, well, that's our last agenda item. Any reports or communications from any of the directors? Okay, then I will bring it to the public for any comment. Seeing none, we will adjourn. Thank you all.